The 49ers had a game-winning drive until they didn't. It felt like Devontae Adams felt kind of like Steph Curry when they're just running him off 9 screens and they're just finding a way to get him the ball, and you just know if he catches the ball, you might be in trouble because Steph will hit the shot. That's what it felt like tonight watching Devontae and Aaron Rodgers. It also felt like there were like 9 total possessions in the game. Like every possession was so valuable because it felt like there weren't that many opportunities.
Well, they had several 3-and-outs early in the game. At halftime, a little like the Eagles game. Now, they were down in the Eagles game. I think they were winning 7-3. This thing, they were down 17-7, but scored with 0 seconds on the clock at the end of the half. Felt like they were pretty lucky to be down 17-7 at half.
Hey, we're glad you're watching this video. Give it a like and subscribe to our channel.
Yep. Also, check out our podcast below in the description.
We are sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka.
#1 vodka in America. Go get yourself some.
Savor responsibly.
They were getting thoroughly mollywopped. Rodgers was 16 of 18 for almost 200 yards, and Devontae had 7 for 73. But the stats, at the time of watching it, I wrote down the stats. I'm like, this feels low. Like this, it feels like Devontae's got 12 at halftime for $180. That you have no answer for him. And listen, when you have multiple wide receivers, I don't know, like the Niners are going to see coming up for the next several weeks, A.J. Green, Hopkins, Rondale Moore. Next week, you got Lockett and DK. They just have one guy. So you got to figure out in this day and age, in 2021, what makes the Packers so unique that they're so good, partly because they have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. They've kind of been kicking the shit out of everyone for the last couple of years with just one wide receiver. Now, their running back's good, and obviously they have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but they do not got 3 wide receivers who scare you. They have one guy, and the Niners, really had no chance to stop him all night long, including the last drive. He caught 2 balls.
Yeah, and he turns out to be one of the best receivers in the NFL, right?
Well, he's a Hall of Fame level. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame one day, probably. He will. Go Dogs.
Yeah.
He's on that pace.
Yeah.
Especially if they stay together, if they continue. Yuhil Tafoya asked him.
Pippen and MJ broke up because MJ retired. But I think they're both going to be on the Packers next year, these two.
Yeah. If they are, then Devontae would be on the path.
But you still see that some of the I think one of the things watching the Niners Sunday night was some of the things that you were concerned about that we talked about during the whole offseason, like they were real things, right? Some of the things we talked about before the game, they're real things. Their running back depth is a real thing. Their secondary is even more real than that. And Jimmy in terms of his high end, which we'll get to some of these individual issues. And now they've got, like you said, Seattle coming up, and Seattle's the Niners are not in a desperate spot, I wouldn't say, but Seattle is
more desperate. Seattle much more desperate.
Seattle is. So what's the target? Can you get to the bye at 3-2 and split the next 2? Can you get to the bye? It feels like getting to the bye at 4-1 now is going to be a major challenge. But
that was going to be a challenge though when you looked at the schedule, right? When you looked at those 4 straight games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I guess 3 straight games.
The Packers. Well, yeah, especially when you looked at the Packers game before you watched the Packers play week 1, when you thought that's how this game could look.
Yeah, but even after you watched them play week 1, having that guy at quarterback is always going to be a challenge. He didn't throw for 400 yards tonight. Now, I think this speaks to what you're talking about. It felt like they had the ball a lot, but he threw for 260 yards. You go through the box scores today, that's low. Like a lot of guys in the NFL throw easily 320, 340, 350. So the yardage and really the points, right? This game was not 38-35. They were at 17 for a long period up until the third quarter. So they never. I wouldn't say that the Niners, they were never in control in the first half, but luckily the Packers didn't have 28 points on the board.
Well, there were only 3 punts in the second half combined.
Well, the Niners take Jimmy's king of, if he's going to score, it's going to be a 6 or 8 minute drive. The Niners don't do 2-minute drives with Jimmy Garoppolo. They don't have the ability to do that. Jimmy does run a 4-yard pass and then some crazy thing, and they barely get a first down. So if they have 2 first downs in a drive and then a punt, the drive takes 5.5 minutes. That's the Niners take a lot of time off. By the way, there was a period of point in that game where it felt like the Niners had to work their ever-loving ass off to gain 10 yards in 3 plays.
Well, I know what drive you're talking about because it felt like it was 9 plays to get to their own 30.
It just and then they barely get over it. And then they have to do a review. And they're like, first down. Like the Packers like ding, ding, boom, 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 first down. It's just so easy. The Niners, you got like chin straps breaking, you got double teams, and then it's like 3 plays and they get 10 yards and a quarter.
Yeah. It takes a lot of things to go right to get from the 25 down to the goal line. They have to make a lot of plays.
Well, we talked about it in the pregame show. One thing that really hurt their running back situation was a disaster tonight, and we love Juice. He's a core member of the guests on this show that we stand by and we support. But like there were points in time tonight. In the passing game is one thing. He is a dynamic player in the passing game because he's going to get matched up on a guy that he's going to have an advantage. But when you have to consistently hand him the ball, they don't want to do that. They have to do that, one, because most of Kyle's good running backs are injured, and 2, clearly he doesn't trust the other running backs. I mean, Trey Sermon, part of this scheme to be successful is you can't dance. So when you do the outside zone and you're like, oh, do a little shimmy, don't see a big hole, shimmy a little more. Well,
yeah, the spin move that used to create separation in college does not create the separation in the NFL.
Yeah, but they're not road grading people. They're creases, and you have to hit them. And even if you hit them and it's not really there, you'll still get 2 or 3 yards. They had way too many. I bet Kyle's going to be hot tomorrow in the office for the run game and mainly on their 3rd-round running back. He played pretty soft would be the wrong way to put it, but just he didn't play the right way for this scheme. If you're going to play that way in this scheme, it will not work.
He didn't look like Elijah Mitchell looked. He didn't look like he looked on his carry that he got hurt on in Philadelphia.
Well, the hole was a little bigger on that.
Okay, it's true. Yeah, but it's 3 yards a carry. It's just even, especially for them. That's why I thought it was so big when they scored the touchdown before the half. Then they come back and score again, and it's like, okay, now maybe you can kind of do more of the stuff that feels like your offense. It was a. It's such a cliche when coaches say we got to get the ball into the hands of our playmakers. And maybe this is part of the Garoppolo conversation, but it really was a get the ball into your hands of your playmakers game. But at all, and you were willing to take on any risk to do it. Like at times they were getting the ball to Debo and they were walking a fine line of an interceptable ball. They would get the ball to Kittle. They'd get the ball to, they got the ball to Ayuk, but it was, you're used to seeing, I think, a little more in their offense of guys being schemed open. And for whatever reason tonight, it didn't look like it normally looks in that regard, right? And we can get to Kyle too, but look, I think before we get to any of that other stuff, they lost an NFC game that they had the lead with less than a minute left, and they lost it because Rodgers had for all the things we're going to talk about, Rodgers had 2 huge throws with no timeouts left at the end of the game.
We got a long way to go, but them beating them 2 years ago held them host the game in the playoffs. Remember? They had the same record. They hosted them. So it's just something. Now, I mean, I'm not even going to – the Niners are nowhere near being talked about as a number 1 seed. But when we talk about playoff stuff, this game will have ramifications and impact. Now, I think it's fair to say – when you look at the division the Packers playing, they're going to win it, right?
Well, like we talked about beforehand, the Packers could have lost Sunday Night Football and still been tied for first when they got on the plane.
Yeah.
At 1 and 2. Hey, go to DraftKings right now. Use the code HAM. There's a link below in the description.
Yep, get in our game. Also, you want to gamble? Monday Night Football is tonight. Eagles at the Cowboys. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1.
But they won it. So they're in first place, and they're probably never going to look back now the rest of the year. The Packers will be in first place in their division for the rest of the year.
Agreed. My thought I got a take, but it's about Jimmy. So you want to just dive into Jimmy?
The other thing I wanted to say about the game was just it did look. Somebody tweeted at me, and it made me laugh because during the NFL preseason, we had joked about Nathan Peterman having to quiet the crowd down when he came in the preseason, like on the goal line. And when Trey Lance came in at the end of the game, it was this really awkward position of fans hadn't been in the stadium for a regular season game since the Packer game. right? The Packer game.
Are you talking about his
19.
touchdown?
Yeah, at the end of the first half,
Yeah.
Trey Lance debuts in the game, his first appearance of the game, and the play starts going nuts.
It was pretty cool.
And Lance has to quiet people down. He's like, shut up.
Well, it was 4th down and 2 seconds left. Like, it was just a moment. If you were sitting in there, you would have cheered.
Absolutely. You would have just got up, nailed somebody in the shoulder, and been like, here he comes. But I thought the crowd, I think back to early in the Levi's Stadium era where there were a lot of conversations about whether the crowd could be good enough. And
too wine and cheesy.
Yeah, and I thought it, I was not there, obviously, but I thought it looked really good. It sounded really good. Somebody had to lose that game. If the Packers lost that game and the Niners had won the game, the Packers would feel like they let one get away, and it would kind of feel like the Niners stole one, which is fine. It doesn't matter how it feels; it goes in one column or the other. But I do think we'll see. I think the Packers. I think they'll end up being a good team this year.
Would have been a devastating loss for the Packers. I mean, it's a shitty loss for the Niners, but they were getting beat most of the game, right?
Devastating in the way it feels, but they were still going to win their division in all likelihood, right?
I know, but just that they had thoroughly outplayed them.
Totally.
2 takes, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it just becomes so negative. The refs, and this is all the way around. I mean, this is the entire on the PI calls going both ways. The call Jimmy got when he got hit in the face by 23.
Yeah, that was a bad call.
I mean, come on. That crew is just we know. It's kind of pointless to even argue over this. The NFL does not give a shit about any of these guys. They just want the entertainment. They don't care who wins or loses. They don't care about the performances. I actually thought I saw a former DB retweeted the hit that Devontae had. I didn't think he got hit in the chest. Like
I thought it was a clean hit.
Yeah, I thought it was a clean hit too.
He did you got some helmet on the chin, but I thought it was a clean hit. It just looked bad.
Yeah, it's a violent game. This is not kickball. This is not softball. Like, guys get mollywopped sometimes in a clean fashion. The refereeing was really bad. The other thing at the end of the game, the Niners were in the unique position once they kind of crossed midfield. It was like, whoa, we got the advantage. They have no timeouts. But they don't have Mahomes. They don't have a good enough quarterback to map it out. Let's just work our way, get down to like 17 seconds, then we'll call we'll trigger the sweet play we got to get an easy touchdown. Like they could fumble at any moment. Jimmy could throw a pick. You just have to score. Now, I did see someone tweet right after they scored, they did snap the ball at 12 seconds. So you could, I would have let it run at least down to like 5 and under. But once Juice catches the ball, he has no choice but to take advantage of his physical gifts and just fucking truck people and try to get into the end zone. Like, I got a couple texts like, he should have gone down at the 2. Like, it's just, you can't do that. And they're not good enough with Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, hell, look at the play you're talking about at the end of the first half. That was a debacle, right? Just a guy jumps off sides on the Niners. They get pushed back. They get a lucky PI call. Like, there was no guarantee they were going to score.
Yeah, I think the point you made on 12 seconds on the play clock, there's a lot going on, but that would be the moment there. The idea that Juszczyk's supposed to do anything but try and score a touchdown.
No, and no one was saying that.
No, I know.
No
but I'm saying, and it goes back to today, the Charger game, where they got some flack for not kneeling on the ball and maybe kicking a field goal, even though then their kicker missed the extra point after they scored the touchdown. I thought more about the Niners end of the first half, where they got lucky to score a touchdown at the end of the first half. I mean, it was that thing could have gone on for 9 minutes of them just knocking on the door until Trey Lance finally came in. They were forced to do something different.
Was a great play call by Kyle on that. You know,
it was
the formation of all the wide receivers, also, Trent Williams.
And also to try and score a touchdown, not kick a field goal there. I think sometimes coaches kick a field goal in that spot. It's our last play of the half.
He had punted a little earlier in midfield. So
I know. I'm just saying, like, I would understand taking the points, but I think he understood that wasn't going to be good enough. And as it turned out, he would have been right about that.
Now, when you really want to nitpick, like the 12 seconds, if they had snapped, it could have been the difference in the game. Now, maybe they changed the Packer strategy a little bit, but time was not on their side, right, toward the end of the game. Really, people were tweeting at me like, go ham on the prevent defense. It's a tough situation. Like, you're not in the business of blitzing guys like Aaron Rodgers. Jimmy Garoppolo, bring the fucking house, right? In that situation, I would too. Aaron Rodgers, I don't feel that comfortable. And Fred, it's just, you could argue the coaching point on that is Fred. I would rather you get greedy and go back to not let anything get behind you in that little zone. You're the middle of the field dropper. If someone catches one, 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage, we're good with that. We give them 15-yard gain. We can't give up the 35-yard gain, which, again, was millimeters of his fingers, but, he's playing it proper technique, and they clearly – think about this, guy. That game, the knowledge of all these guys, think about LaFleur and Kyle. They've known each other for a decade, run the same offense. Joe Barry, his new defensive coordinator, has been with Sean McVay for the last 4 years as his linebacker coach. So they're thinking on the play calls against the defenses and the offenses. It's unique. They're able to uniquely anticipate.
D'Amico Ryan's been coaching against this thing in practice. He knows
forever.
what they do.
And he coached against it in practice. And he played against, but he's played against this offense. Chip Kelly ran versions like the run scheme. Like they're just.
It's felt like UCLA Fresno State. I did think on that last drive, we're rush 3, don't rush 4. Although Collinsworth made the point, like a sack kind of ends the game, so I understood it. They didn't almost get.
But I'm talking more like bring 6, like fucking bring him and force him to get the ball out of his hand quickly. What if one of your corners trips over himself and 17 runs into the end zone?
Yeah, which felt like almost happened a couple of times.
Yeah, because you knew he was going to 17. What if you did this? Bring 5 or 6, put 2 people on 17.